This position is pretty critical, and having it not being a single person making the decision because it represents the whole party, but soliciting feedback. Because in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've had lots of people come to me and talk to me about, well, this person has this, and this person has this, and this person has this. I think at the end of the day, we need to be very clear on what it is we expect from the position. I kind of ask people who would like to do it, because I can sit here and say, oh, Stephanie Andres would be great. But does Stephanie Andres want the job? So clearly identifying what it is we want, going to the individuals who've been on the forefront of election integrity fight, and then working with people almost like an application process as well, talking with individuals and finding out what can they contribute, what is their background, similar to what we're doing here, not in a form or anything, but getting the right people with the right skill set that's going to do the service that we need them to do.
Thank you. Peter?
This is perhaps one of the most important decisions and responsibilities of the chair. It's fine to take advice. I happen to sit on the Republican Party's Election Integrity Task Force that has been writing the laws that went into SB 202, 1464, 122 this year, and 222, which gets rid of the Zuckerbugs. And that has passed, needs to pass the House. We need to take the fight. The sharp elbows do not need to be amongst any of us. The sharp elbows need to be down at the Fulton BRE. That's our Board of Elections. We have 2 people that have gotten into a situation that they didn't expect. But we have very able people who have been active. One who has paid for a lawsuit that is still active and still standing from the 2020 election. She is an expert. We have other great fighters who, if I don't want to take sidebars, I won't mention, who could serve in that role. We have great fighters. We don't need conciliatory. What we need is someone who gets the ground rules in front of the elections, and what we do in case these rules are broken, so we don't end up in court and we don't end up at the State Board of Elections and playing victim and having them not do anything for 8 months. We need to get the ground rules down for pat, like we did in other counties. We can do it in Fulton, but we need people with sharp elbows and sharp teeth to fight for us. Thank you.
For the last 2 years, I have been working with one of the current election board members who was new, and I spent 2 years training, teaching, talking. She was appointed, really had no clue. And having worked on elections, I have inside connections in Fulton County Elections Department. Don't tell anybody I said that, but I get to know everything that's going on the inside. Remember, most of them are Democrats, and I got friends in the Democratic. So I think I'm going to do it a little differently this time. I would like to see, I started an election integrity group in South Fulton, had several people as part of that. I would like to see a small group of people, maybe 3 or 4, interviewing folks who are interested. They have to submit some type of a resume, say what their experiences are, why they want to run, how they want to do it. It's a little different, but I think it works because now we have the committee that will interview those folks. They will come with a recommendation. The county chairman is not responsible for appointing that individual. The county chairman brings a recommendation to the executive board who gets to vote on that individual. So don't get it twisted. It's been done like that in the past, but that's not the way it's supposed to be done. If we want to keep order in this organization, we need to do it the right way. So, again, what I would do, have a committee, they would interview, they give out applications, you fill them out, you interview, recommendations, and we vote on them. That's it. And that way, we are putting that responsibility in the hands of those members who are going to facilitate and help the party select the right person. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Peter, you're up. And I've seen about 3 versions, actually 4 versions of this question, so I'm going to try to merge it into one. It seems very popular. How will we go about broadening our party base to appeal to other races and religions in order to win elections? In other words, changing the perception that we aren't open and inclusive as the Democrats imply.
This starts in communities of interest. It starts in neighborhoods. I'm Jewish, supported by the Republican Jewish Coalition. I come out to meetings. I value folks of faith. Guess what? We have Muslims who've been chased away. We have Hindus who've been chased away. They also have their faith. They want to be included. We're in South Fulton. My daughter is in East Point. That's where she lives. We need to have people in the precincts. We need to have people in communities of interest as our messengers and ambassadors in every sense of the word. We need to be showing up at Diwali. We need to be showing up at the Taiwanese Festival, where I spoke. We need to show up at the Korean Festival. These are communities of interest. Set up telegrams, set up signal groups, bring them in, and when we do an activity, make sure, when we do a mass activity, make sure that we are inclusive of everyone, that we are not parsing that out, and we are not excluding. I've heard from too many people that they don't feel included in our county party. They go donate to campaigns, but they don't show up for us. We're going to change that. Thank you.
Sonia.
I want to do this a little differently. Brandon Beach is a senator up here in Milton somewhere, maybe somewhere. And Brandon Beach is on the committee that, I can't remember all the names of the committees, but he's on the one important committee that's near and dear to me, and that's the gambling. And then I heard that if they do pass that bill, they're bringing it in South Fulton. What I would do a little differently is try to get the politicians that are responsible for making decisions to come into the various communities. The Asians, the Hispanics, the Indians, not just South Fulton. You're not going to get folks in South Fulton to join the party overnight. So let's just not focus just on South Fulton. We're going all over. We have Indians in Roswell. We have Indians in Johns Creek. We have all kinds of people, Asians living up here. So it's just not South Fulton, it's everywhere. But you know what? People want to see some of those people who make decisions that affect their lives. So what I would like to do as chairman is if I go out to these events, I like to bring someone who has the ultimate responsibility for making decisions so that people can get to talk to them and realize that Republicans are real life people. They're not as bad as what people say they are. They're not as bad as what the media is saying. And so, you know, as a person of color, I catch hell in South Fulton. But also I have a lot of people who understand and who are afraid that will come to Gordon and say, I want to join the Republican Party. Man, I really like you guys. You guys are doing a lot, and I love your values. We don't hide. So get into all those communities. We'll love to see Brian Kemp in South Fulton. People call and said, we don't like Stacey Abrams. We don't want to vote for her. Where's Brian Kemp? Could he come? We couldn't get him to come. But if we can get some of those politicians to walk and talk and go to some of these places with us, I guarantee you that that will be a #1 change for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Stephanie?
So I may look at this a little bit more simplistically, but for our communities up here, those house precincts, when you're starting to develop your precinct, whether, you can't hear me? Okay, sorry. So I may look at this a little bit more simplistically, but it's at the House district, the precinct chair areas where you've got your precincts, you start having meetings, you start becoming a group, maybe you start having social events, pool parties, invite your neighbors. At the end of the day, to appreciate somebody and who they are, you just have to get to know them. They just have to get to know you, and if you happen to have a Republican brand, that's easy. You can't force yourself onto somebody and say, please like me. I think one way to be able to have that type of engagement is definitely elected officials having town halls for the community, getting into the community, and then them having to work with the residents, whomever they are, to engage and to answer questions and to engage with them. And then while you're there, the House precinct chairs can start getting to knowing the neighbors that maybe aren't coming out. And it's really about just getting to be part of your community. An interesting thing about South Fulton is, of course, you can't just walk there and say, I'm a Republican, I'm here to help. But what you could do is help facilitate activities with public safety, right? A lot of, so you're wearing a Republican shirt, but it's about public safety. You're facilitating and getting because a lot of the police officers will come and they want to be with the kids so the kids get comfortable with them. They're trying to do activities so the children in the community's not afraid. You just start facilitating, depending on where you're going, what the community is, an event that's not about Republicans and about politics, but it is run by Republicans who can then get in the community, and you start seeing people for who they are, and that you're not the stereotype that they think you are. And each area is going to be a little different. The North End is much easier because we are more Republican, and we have these groups where we can beat into social clubs and stuff like that. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Sonia, you're up. Would you support dismissing someone from the Fulton County Republican Party or preventing that person from holding Fulton County Republican Party leadership position if it was proven that the person helped elect Democrats, whether or not the election was nonpartisan?
According to the bylaws that I've read, the bylaws is very strict and clear about what the Republican Party should be doing. The main mission of the Republican Party is to elect conservatives in seats. If we are supporting other folks other than Democrats, that is not part of what the bylaws calls for. We have a lot of folks that has been doing that in the Republican Party. I just looked at a flyer and I saw one of the candidates who's running for chairman of this party's name on a flyer that was supporting a Democrat. And it was sent to me. I'm not going to chase that person down, but I didn't know, and I was a little shocked that one of our persons that is running for a seat is supporting a Democrat. I had a real problem with that because that means that we're taking away from helping Republicans win to protect our values, and we're supporting a Democrat. Last year, Felicia Moore was running. I went to a meeting. She made it very clear, I am a Democrat. I'm going to make democratic decisions. Betsy Kramer asked her question, and she did everything else but answer that question because she had no intention of doing what was right, and it was about defending the police. And when Betsy asked her, she just acted like she didn't even hear the question. So that's the problem I have with supporting Democrats. Plus, it's not part of our bylaws, it's not our goals, and it's not what we're supposed to be doing. So therefore, we really need to be careful in what we're doing as a party. We're building a party, not breaking it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, the principles are the core principles, right? And you're violating it by not supporting Democrats. You're violating it by not following the core principles. If you're supporting a Democrat, whether it's party sanctioned or not, if you're on the executive committee and you are supporting fundraisers, you're supporting anything, it's not good. I get that you may want to work with someone, but the party's out there and the image and the brand is negatively impacted. And I know so many people who have walked away from the party and said, I can't do this, you're sabotaging my efforts. So, very simplistically, yes.
Peter?
I'll address this head on. Thank you for the sidebars. Mike?
I went to an event with my wife where Felicia Moore and also the Republican candidate for the City Council of Atlanta, we went to that event because Angelique Moore, our friend, had hosted that event. I did not give consent to my name as a host for that event. In my life, I'm 61 years old. I have not raised $1, not cent one for a Democrat. I have never donated to a Democrat. I have never worked on a Democrat campaign. Thank you. Sonia's speaking of me, and it's incorrect. In answer to the question, Tom, if those are our rules, that's great. I think what we should do is make Democrats spend a lot more of their own money and not ours. We don't want to drive people out of the party. We certainly don't want our officers out there supporting them. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. This would be Sonia. So, bear with me. Election integrity question. Do you support SB 221? This bill eliminates all drop boxes and addresses other important issues with elections.
For someone who's been working the elections, I will tell you that I was elated with a House bill, Senate bills, whatever bills that came out that support getting rid of those drop boxes. I was one of those people. The board and I work in the polls, and we would see folks coming in with bags and bags of just ballots just dropping in boxes. We already know what were in those. I have talked to people. We have Democrats going into retirement homes, and they're helping seniors vote Democrat. They're not voting what they really want. Election integrity is really there and there to me. That's why I started Election Integrity Group in South Fulton with Jan Johnson, who is now currently a state election board member. Dr. Wolf was on that board, and we had Barbara Hartman, the guru of going after anybody that she knows is not doing right. And so I have been working on a lot of those election integrity issues. I went down, as I mentioned earlier, we went down to the Georgia Dome, and we saw people doing whatever they want but what they were supposed to be doing. I'm 100% in agreement. Telling folks that you can't get a driver's license to show up at the polls to vote, that's an insult to people of color. I tell you what, nobody really liked that part when Stacey Abrams tells us, you can't get a driver's license because you're black. That is so insulting to us. So, that bill, it was something that we needed, and we needed a long time ago. If Brandon decided he's going to switch up stuff and made some off-the-wall agreement with Stacey Abrams, that was the best bill that we can pass in the history of the elections in the state of Georgia. And we need to keep adding to it as the need arises.
Thank you, Sonia. Stephanie.
So the question was, do I support the Senate bill that eliminates the drop boxes?
SB 221, the bill eliminates all drop boxes and addresses other important issues with elections.
Yes. Yes, it
Peter?
I'm I'm not sure if it's 221 or actually 121, but I don't want to get involved in that. It's Kay Kirkpatrick's bill, and it is really bringing up all the issues that we brought forward last year when Jeff Duncan, our then Lieutenant Governor, had the bill die on the floor. 122, 121, and 222 are the remaining pieces from what we submitted in 2021 to correct problems that created the opportunity for ballot harvesting. Has everybody seen 2,000 Mules? Yeah, they haven't debunked it. It actually happened. The videos are real. You're being gaslighted. That has happened. The drop boxes are a danger for ballot harvesting. Even though ballot harvesting is illegal, we've got a situation where people don't really care if it's illegal, if there are no teeth in the enforcement of our laws. In SB 222, for the first time, getting rid of the Zuckerbuck money, and we forbid it in SB 202, and then the Democrats in DeKalb figured out a way to use a pass-through. 222 makes it a felony for a government employee or anyone to accept public money for private money for public elections. Let's get rid of the drop boxes. I support it. I support everything we have in 122 and 121, and if 221 is a new label for today, absolutely. Let's do it. We can't monitor it. We can't control it. There's no chain of custody. We're good. Let's get rid of it.
Thank you. Stephanie, what is your plan to help all Republican candidates with campaign contribution help and perhaps aid in the analysis of proper messaging to the particular voters of the race versus a straight party line political ideology?
You say it one more time.
Okay. What is your plan to help all Republican candidates with campaign contribution help and perhaps aid in analysis of proper messaging to the particular voters of the race versus a straight party line political ideology? In other words, will you customize certain races versus based on location?
What do you mean by customized? I guess I'm sorry.
Is there a difference between Johns Creek and a House District, or is there a difference between South Fulton? Is there a difference between Sandy Springs? In other words, will you cater to the audience that you're trying to get votes?
You mean in messaging and everything? No. I think you need to stick with the Republican Party, the core principles. That's who we are. That's what we do. That's what's meaningful to us. And that's the problem that we have, is we keep trying to meet people in the middle and go along to get along. Well, what's that getting us? A party that's Democrat-light? I mean, I'm not a Democrat. I don't support anything that the Democrats support. And I think the messaging needs to be consistent and clear. The elected official needs to support initiatives and follow through when they get elected. The things that they said they were going to vote for. The one election that I remember, I think his name was Dan Brown, and he ran Massachusetts. And I think he was the one that they was getting a special election, and he was going to run and vote no on the health care bill, and his first vote out, he voted yes. That's just not acceptable. And then financing, I think you need to have consistent rules around how you're going to support the different candidates at the different levels and how much money, but then we also have to know how much money we have. So I think there needs to be form and mechanism so that there's an expectation by the elected officials who are running. If you've got multiple Republicans in a race, you can't pick one. You got to let the people pick them. They have to stand up on their own merits. You're not supposed to beat each other up. We have got to stop eating each other up in these elections, in the primaries, because you're not going to have good people that are going to want to stand up and run when their own party allows that kind of behavior on them. So I do believe there needs to be some form and structure around it. I do believe that the messaging should be consistent with the principles of the party. That's what I believe. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Peter?
I have some experience with this. Milton is certainly not South Fulton. Sandy Springs is not South Fulton. Milton is not Midtown. The issues in local communities in each House district are different. If we were to run Marjorie Greene's campaign in the 6th district, Marjorie Greene would not be in Congress right now. I am certain of this. So you want to talk about adjusting the message to fit the electorate. We are not just competing for Republican votes. Republicans may make up 35%, Democrats may make up 35% or more. There is a whole swath in the middle of unaffiliated voters that we have to address. How do we know our communities? We know our communities by reaching out through every precinct. If we insist on doctrinaire, we will be doctrinaire in some congressional districts and some House districts, and we will lose many, many more. I suggest a customized approach and flexibility. Flexibility. It's not giving up our principles. It's a matter of messaging, and it's a matter of the issues that we prioritize. I know I coordinated with several candidates to make sure that none of us went off the reservation. Some won, some didn't, but it is a local decision in each House district. Thank you.
Sonia?
I see this a little differently. It's an insult to say that the message is not the same in Milton as it did in South Fulton. Why am I saying that? Everyone in South Fulton wants their children to have the same education as they do in Milton. Everyone in South Fulton wants to eat the same way the folks in Johns Creek and Milton eat. The message doesn't change. It's how we present it to people that's going to change. There might be some slightly differences, yes. There might be more crime in South Fulton than there is in Johns Creek. But guess what? Crime is going everywhere. Buckhead got more crime probably than we do in South Fulton. So what do? We have a message to people that says we are going to make life better for you. There is no difference. Yeah, you got some black folks in South Fulton, and you might have other races in other places, but we still want the same thing that everybody else wants. So I don't necessarily agree that we have to change the message. The approach might be very different. You might have to show up in South Fulton with some food and tell them the same thing that you're going to tell the folks in Milton who may not want to eat. The folks in Milton they're going to come after you to get the message. They don't have time to eat. In South Fulton, you got to sit with them. And you're going to have to entice them and tell them why I want you to vote for me, because I'm sharing the same thing as you, but I want you to eat. We want to sit and we're going to talk and we're going to eat. So that's what I would say in terms of getting the message out. But we have to be careful. They want education, they want to eat. Our economy is down. Children in South Fulton want access to a better life. They want access to work skills. They don't want to be on welfare. Everybody in South Fulton want to be on welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Peter, you're up. Locally, the Second Amendment Preservation Act, HB 293, prevents Georgia police officers from enforcing any federal mandates limiting our Second Amendment rights. Unfortunately, there are some Republicans in the Georgia legislature who are attempting to water down this legislation. Can we count on our Republican leadership to pass this bill unsullied?
Our Second Amendment rights, it's very interesting, are most important as equalizers for the women in our society for self-defense. A lot of people don't realize that. My wife and I, both before constitutional carry, went through the process of getting our CC licenses. We train. I insist that my wife is better than I am and a better shot. But it's better for her self-protection. Stephanie and I stood with Brian Kemp and Bob Barr and the vice chair of the NRA when we announced the Constitutional Carry Initiative at Adventure Outdoors.